All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. Today's Lunch and Learn is going to be about Microsurvey CAD. You're probably used to seeing my face on these things, but next to me is James Johnston from Microsurvey. He volunteered his time today to come show you about the products that they offer. Let's go ahead. I'm going to start sharing some of the presentation. All right, as usual, if you follow that QR code or take a picture of it with your camera, you'll get our direct download link. It's also all written out right here. Again, thank you guys for coming. I know you guys have valuable little time, and it's awesome to spend some time with you guys and show you one of the offerings that we don't normally get to see. You know, it's a little bit out of character for me to be in a CAD program on one of these, but that is definitely my background, and I'm excited to show it to you. Again, with me is James Johnston. He's been with Microsurvey for almost 17 years. He's currently the support and training manager at Microsurvey. He's been involved in geomatics and education since 1990. It's been, looking over his career, it's been a pretty interesting combination of teaching and geomatics, not always at the same time. He gets to specialize in least squares adjustments and making that all work inside of Microsurvey. And he authors a lot of the training materials that you'll get to see. There was supposed to be a second gentleman here today. Sadly, he came down with the flu today. So you're going to see a brief picture of him, and we're going to scan right over him. All right.
Don't worry, it's not COVID.
Well, and
just a plain old flu.
Luckily, you can't get COVID over the internet. So So starting out, I'll go over the workflow that I used to use as a customer. I will say from personal experience, as both a customer and now working with them on the sales side, Microsurvey is a pleasure to work with. They showed me how to do this workflow when I was brand new to survey, and I've used it ever since, and it still holds true today. They're great customer service. They're great people to talk to. I think I was even yelled at once by them, and I didn't realize it for about a week and a half. So just great people. I can't say enough about them. Going forward, we're going to go into a little video. You're going to see the first step that we usually do is check the scale and adjust if needed. We do that because sometimes you get something from an architect and they love to draw in inches. Or James, what architects in Canada draw in?
It's about half inches, half millimeters, actually. It's but surveyors need to use that same feature in Canada.
So we'll talk briefly about the rescale wizard. We didn't actually need to do it on this drawing, so it'll show you how to do it, but not necessarily finish the process. Then we'll go into the drawing cleanup wizard. This drawing didn't need a ton of cleanup, but it's a cool feature to know, and it saves you a lot of time as far as not having to go into AutoCAD and do it yourself. Then we'll show you the coordinate grid line, which is my favorite feature and something that I don't think is offered by a lot of softwares out there, if any others. And then we'll import the control and align it to this CAD drawing. And then I'm going to hand it over to James, and he's going to show you some other cool features that are his favorite features in the software. So without saying much more, we'll get into it. So first thing we're going to do is check scale, like we said. This is what you'll see when you open a drawing in Microsurvey CAD. You can just kind of pan around a little bit. If we go up to MS Kogo at the top of the screen, you see a 2-point inverse up there. If you select that and hit OK, you can select any 2 points that you know the dimensions to. I know this is a 4 foot by 4 foot blockout, and I look at it and it's telling me exactly that it is 4 feet. Now, if it had said 84 inches or something like that, or 84, I would know the units were wrong, and I would then go over to my wizards under MS Tools. Under the wizards page is all these different types. What I'm looking for is rescale drawing wizard. Right there. So I'll select that, and I'll select inches or whatever it's in, drop it to whatever I want it in, which is feet. If in Canada, probably meters. I'm not 100% sure. I should probably spend more time in Canada. And hit OK. I hit cancel here, but there I would hit OK, and it would change it. It would also then give you an option to, we're moving a little bit fast there. It would also give you an option to rescale your labels at that time, which is a handy feature that James and I were just talking about a second ago. So here we are in the next step that I usually do in my workflow, which is the drawing cleanup wizard. We were just under the wizards a second ago. So MS Tools, wizards, and we were looking for drawing cleanup wizard, which is going to be at the top.
I know the one. Yep, there you found
Yep, there it is. Sometimes I struggle finding what I need. And right there is everything that you can do with it. And I'm going to go ahead and pause that. Oh, just real quick, we'll go back. It's a really handy little thing. You can explode blocks is a huge one. If you're coming from Revit and just going into another software, Revit likes to bring out their families as entities sometimes and not individual lines. So when you go to try and add points into it and say, like an infinity, it will just add a center point to your columns and not a point at each corner of that column. So if you select explode blocks, it will actually explode that, create different lines for each part of that column. But then when you throw points on it, you'll have the points that you want, not just center points. Same thing with embeds and a few other families coming from Revit. Handy thing to have, and a lot faster than doing it in, say, Autodesk, Civil 3D or anything else. So we're going to hit play, but you'll see it delete any hatches, and it tells you exactly everything it did. And there's always a Control-Z if you don't like what it ended up doing. Real fast process right there. Got rid of all the XREFs, hatching, and now I have a super clean drawing that is ready for survey, basically, minus points. Coordinate grid line. I'm super excited to show this one. I love this one. All right, so what this does is it's another wizard, and you're going to go ahead and select use named grid lines and point ID. The reason I love this one so much, I'm going to pause right here. The reason I love this one so much is because when you're in the field and you're zoomed in and you're trying to lay out that grid line, I don't memorize point number 500 from 501. I don't know if that's A1 or A7, but if you label it A1 and A7, you know exactly what you're laying out. You don't have to zoom out to see where you're at. It's a handy time-saving tool in the field. So real simple process. All it wants you to do is select grid line A. You hit enter, select the grid line, go down the line. This is kind of sped up a little bit because it's a longer process that you probably don't need to see. The interesting thing is HI. It wants I. You just type in J and then hit enter. You can select it. You can pipe in whatever you want. So grid line, architects get a little fancy with their point sevens. You can add those. Hit escape, start going down. If you notice right here, I missed the line. And so it will give you an option to select it again, which is nice. And then just keep on going down the list of grid lines. When you get to the end, hit escape one more time. And without fail, we have a grid line intersection point that we can export or bring or, just use with super easy, super fast. All right, import control and Align. Before we let this go, I am used to using Align. Now, Microsurvey CAD offers the RCS, right? Rotate, what is it, James? Rotate something in scale?
Rotate, translate, scale.
Rotate, translate, and scale. It's a powerful tool. I'm used to using Align because I like to know that I'm not altering the scale of that control I got from the surveyor. I'm eliminating my error from it. And I'm also a very visual person. As you'll see here in a second, you get to select a point and select another point that it matches. And to me, it makes me feel better seeing it happen. Everybody's a little bit different, and I love the RCS tool. I use it in Infinity quite a bit, and it's very similar in this program. So that's just a difference between there's multiple ways to skin this cat. This is just the way that I used forever, and it's you're more comfortable with what you know. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to MS Points. We're going to import the ASCII points. So a text file. You select what it is. Most surveyors I know use point number, northern, easting, elevation, separated by commas. I'm going to turn off point protection right now because we're going to have to do that later when we want it to move anyway. So I just preemptively turn off that point protection. Just ignore the names on these files. I should have changed all those. So right now we have we have our points on our state plane, and then we have our drawing on my user coordinate system, which is the 1,000, 3,000, I believe. You're going to zoom on in, and it should cut here real quick. We'll select a line, and apparently it already cut. There we go. So I just typed it down into the search bar, just like any other CAD program. You can either start typing the tool you want, or you can select it from the toolbars up top, or you can select a hotkey. It was at this point that I realized that I can't really see the points very well. So I went into the point tools, changed how they're represented so I can see them easier. Then I realized that I exited the tools again. So I started typing a line, found it, spelled it wrong, and now we're rocking and rolling. So I'm going to select the first point, and I know that this point here, because I'm looking at the ASCII file as I go, is A and 1. So I'm going to go ahead, turn off the grid snapping, grab my node, run on over to my user coordinate system, which we can now easily see as we zoom out. I'm double clicking on the center mouse key right now. And as you can see, those point numbers are 5%. Those point symbols are 5% of the screen, no matter how big or small that screen gets. So we showed this, that's at normal speed right here. I'm going to go ahead and start fast forwarding a little bit for the next two. You need 3 points to make this happen. And so we grab A and 1. We're going to grab A and 10, which you don't need to know these actual. Good thing I have the descriptions turned on. I almost grabbed the 10-foot offset. And this is a super easy.
I'll comment, you can usually get away with using just 2 points too.
Oh, really? If you hit enter right now, it would just do 2?
Mm-hmm.
I've always just thought, okay, that's good. See, this is a lunch and learn for me too.
Good.
And then M and 10, and it should automatically, I know it looks like pure chaos sped up a little bit, but A and 10, and then this should align all of my points. And this is why I turned off point protection. If I hadn't, it would have asked me to turn it off right then and there to rotate that control. Now we have all of our control aligned to our grid and our user coordinate system, and we can go out and we can start shooting, which I believe is what James is about to show you.
I'll show you a couple more steps before we go to do that, actually.
Okay. I believe that's, I don't know why I have 7 more minutes of me scrolling around looking at it. All right. So I'm going to stop my share. And then, James, the floor is all yours. I didn't mean to yell at you there.
All right. Okay. And I'm sorry I'm not as well prepared as Mac, because I'm just going to try and do this on the fly. So here we go. So I've got the drawing open in the same state that Mac left it off. So you can see that we've got all the grid lines already populated. I'll show you 2 other tools that are also useful for this type of workflow, where you've got a CAD program, you want to prep it, you want to send it to the field, and then you want to bring it back. And those are on the, now let me collapse this toolbar. I thought I had it all well organized, Mac. Here it is. Okay. So what I'm going to use the Add Points Objects tool and the Store and Edit Points tool. So to do that, what I want to do is, first of all, I'm going to isolate that blue layer, because that'll be some building footings. And all that does is it just freezes all the other layers so that it's easy for us to work on. And so then I'll show you those 2 point population tools. So first of all, let's say I want to start point numbering at 500. So let's update hot toggles. And then I'll do add points objects first of all. And so what this allows me to do is just window in a part of the drawing and tell it, I just want you to snap to all of the lines, arcs, circles, polylines. And I'll just pick on OK, window in. Let's say this part of these interior walls we need to go stake out. So you just window them in and you hit enter. And then, oh, and it's just warning me that I won't see them because I have some of my layers frozen. And so there you can see it's already added those to the points database. There are also times when, for example, you just want to individually pick items that you want to populate with points, so you can send them for staking. And you just use this function here, store and edit points. So it's telling me you probably want to store a 0.528. I can just go pick point, and then I can just use my CAD snaps. And let's say we want to add a point to the end of that wall there. There you can see it's added, and maybe a point to there. And it's added, and I just pick on OK. And so all these points, so the points that Mack created by using grid line intersection, and all of the points that I've created individually, they're all stored in the active coordinate editor that I can open up here. Okay, so those were two things I wanted to show you, and I had showed you how you can use the isolate tool as a start, and then you go back here and you can pick on unisolate, which is isolate's partner. So now we've got a drawing that, let's say I've populated it with all the points that we need, and what we want to do now is send it out to the field. So first thing that you want to do is clean up the drawing by, freezing any layers that you don't want to send to the field. So for example, the layer that has this hatching on it, we definitely don't want to see that. So see how I'm just hitting that freeze layer tool, and I'll bet you I want to get rid of that item. So you just want to kind of declutter the drawing before you send it out for staking to make life easier. It's good to have some of the line work to give you context, but keep it tidy. And then once you've got the drawing prepared, then this is the last step, and we're going to find it over on the MS Traverse ribbon. And this is where we go to export raw data, and you'll notice that there's a function here called like icon, and it's not just built for icon hardware. It's really useful for pretty well most of the manufacturers of instruments. All that this does when you activate it is it allows you to specify the file that you're going to create. So in this case, it's just gonna grab the project name. Most of the time what people do is they just go save to and they browse to their thumb drive, which is where they're gonna copy it to. And I always recommend uncheck entire drawing and uncheck include text just to keep things tidy. And when I pick OK, then it just asks me to select what do you want to send out to the field. So you just make a big window basically. And so what that'll do is it'll look at all of the points that are inside that window, and it'll also take all of the line work and it'll turn it into a DXF, or it'll turn it into two files, a DXF file and an ASCII file that you can import into the controller and go to work. So after I've selected, I'll hit enter. And you see there's a message right down there telling me where it's created the two files. So those are ready to go out to the field and start staking. Okay, and the last function that I want to show you is called cluster reports. And, oh gosh, I even had the wrong drawing open here. So I'm going to close this and just reopen it, because now I'm going to show you what will happen after you've done your stakeouts, and you're going to import an ASCII file with the results of your staking. So over on MS Points, I've got import ASCII points. I'm going to browse into field files where I've got this one. Okay, so what we've done now is I've just got 4 stake points, and I know where they are. So, and you probably didn't even see when they were added, but if I zoom in here, here's an example. So we've got, point 101, which had the descriptor A1, that is the grid line. That was the plan point. And then up here, that's the actual stake point. So you'll notice how I'm using I'm showing the point nodes as, here, let me do a quick regen so they show as circles. What I've done here is something similar to what Mack likes to do, which is play around with how point nodes are displayed by drawing them as circles, and those circles are 0.1 unit in diameter. So we get an idea of how close those points are. But if we zoom back here, then we'll find, so if you know exactly where you're going, you could zoom in and see how close all your stake points are. But there's another tool called Cluster Reports that makes it easy to do a quick summary. And so let me go through that with you. So you'll find Cluster Reports. It's MS Points ribbon, and you go to the Clusters tool here. And so what this is going to do is effectively, you're going to window in a part of the drawing and you're going to tell it, look for points that are all really close to each other. And that's what typically happens when you've got good staking, or sometimes when you've got backside check shots, you want to use clusters to check on how good all of your backside check shots were. So in this case, I'm going to tell it, I look down in the command line here, you can see what I'm doing. I'm hitting enter to tell it I want to do a 2D filter. And I'm going to tell it to look for any points that are within 0.1 of a foot of each other. So I'll hit enter there, and then a minimum number of points that defines a cluster. 2 is the default. I'm just looking for pairs of points that are really close to each other. Select entities. So here I'm just going to window in the part of the drawing where I know I probably have some point clusters. And I'll hit enter. And you can see in the command line, it's already identified, hey, there's 4 places where there seem to be points that are really close together. And then it asks me, how do I want to work with that? So first thing it wants to know is which of the points we consider to be the design points and which are the staked points. And so in this example, we had made sure that the design points were in the point range 1 to 500. So I just type in 1 to 500 here. And do I want to define, or, oh, hang on, sorry. First I have to hit R and tell it I want to type in a range, 1 to 500. And do I want to work with it? Oh, right, and next it's going to ask me, now it's going to do a little pass-fail test. And in this case, let's see, I want it to fail a point if it's more than, I think, 0.05 between the 2 points. So I'll type that one in. Hit enter, and I just hit enter again because I'm not worried about a vertical tolerance. And then finally, how do I want to treat the report? I want to see it in a grid form, so I hit R, and then it pops up a nice summary of how our clusters look. So I'll bring that one out there. So you can see it tells us what the original point was, what the measured point was, and then you can see what your deltas are. And more importantly, the tolerance that I'd set here, you notice how it just tells us yes, no, no, no. And this is the one that I'd purposely made slightly outside of tolerances. So we know that that particular stake point isn't as close as we'd like it to be. And so this is a report that you can hit copy, and you can copy it over into a spreadsheet. Very often, that's a very typical kind of a reporting task that you'll want to do. So there you go. That's all that I wanted to show for clusters. I always like to show this set of routines, both what Mack was talking about and what I was able to talk about, because it really does kind of show for companies that do this kind of work, construction staking, it's 90% of what they need. And it's nice how it all fits into one little package.
Yes, it's definitely a full field to office and then back to field package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of neat because over the years I've been with Microsurvey, almost all the tools we're talking about are things that customers have suggested to us. And we talked to the developers, they said, oh, that's a good idea. And they built it. So it looks nice.
Okay.
That's all I've got to say. And if Mack hasn't already said it, I'm delighted to answer questions as well.
Perfect. It looks like we have one in our chat already from Robert. It says, can you auto scale around a point and or manual scale, create a combined scale factor?
There is a feature. Are we talking about, for example, a state plane combined scale factor?
I'm not sure.
Or a ground to grid scale factor?
I think. Oh, yes, apparently.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't demo it in this product, but Microsurvey does have all the geodetic tools that you need in the background. for seeing what the ground to grid scale factor is for any point, as long as they're state plane points. And all you do is in the coordinate editor, if you go to
are they talking about like a localization, but post process? Is that the question, or?
It could be something like that, but it's essentially it's the ground to grid scale factor that's computed relative to the state plane. So we do have that ability to show it. But in this case, we're not working with state plane coordinates. But as soon as you turn that on, all it does is it just adds extra columns to the active coordinate editor, and it shows you scale factor and the deflection angle for each of the points. Usually, most companies use that. All they do is they just highlight the whole column and compute the average in Excel if they want to use a Microsurvey computed scale factor in a project. Let me know if I answered the right question there.
Perfect. We can always email if it's not.
For sure.
Definitely take advantage of having James here on this call with us today. He's a wealth of knowledge. Robert said yes. Thank you.
Oh, good. Great.
Do we have any more questions? I have one for you. Is there an easy way to scale these labels to where I can see them better?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That happens often because typically our program plots the labels and the sizing is set by one of the default settings in Microsurvey, which you would see here. So in this case, this particular drawing is set up assuming that you're going to be plotting it at a drawing scale factor of 20. Sometimes that's the scale you want, sometimes it's not. If it's not, it's easy enough to change. MS points, we go to rescale complete drawing, and I'll say in this case, how about you plot all of the labels, assuming I'm going to plot it at 1 to 50 instead. And it just redraws everything.
Oh, well, that's really fast.
That's kind of a good tool to use as well, because it essentially just refreshes all of the smart entities that are inserted in the drawing. So, like if you update your layer assignments in your code list, or if you update symbols or something like that, just doing a rescale just refreshes the entire drawing.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is your last chance. If you have anything you want to plug or any final wisdoms, James.
Oh, me to make something up? I thought you were challenging your audience to ask me StarNet questions.
I was, and our StarNet questionnaire is not on, so you'll have to email them later.
All right. Okay. No, all I'd want to say is, first of all, thank you to Mack and to Kuker-Ranken for inviting me. I really do like showing these features because they're just so specific to the industry that Mack used to work in, and that a lot of people still do. I've tried to show you the most relevant tools, but of course, Microsurvey's got, we've seen the 2% that are useful in this case. I'm delighted to hear from other people if they have questions about the other 98% of capabilities.
Perfect. All right. Well, since you didn't want to plug anything, I'll plug a couple of things. Be sure to reach out for the KR catalogs and the KR calendars that we have going out. We love to hand those out. If you see in your chat, we have several of the next ones listed coming up. We have GNSS with Brian Worthen on the 22nd. On the 29th, we have the CS20 with Jeremy Kippen. And April 12th, we have mobile mapping with the Animal. That's always a fun one. And then just reach out if you guys have any more questions to either us or Microsurvey. We're always here to help. And thank you guys for your time.